Saturday, I watched you fly away across the empty sky. I turned around and waved goodbye, and now it's me alone.
For this project, you're going to need a yarn color of your choice, a pair of scissors, and a crochet hook. This is the yarn I'm going to be using to crochet my collar.
In a town that always sleeps, and a blind man in the darkness knows no difference. But I have grown accustomed.
This is the size crochet hook I'll be using.
That you bring.
To start this project, I'm going to be leaving a little long tail behind so that I could finalize my project. Now I'm going to grab my crochet hook, cause a little bit of tension, twist it, and now rotate it all the way around. With this hand, I'm going to hold the little tail, and with this other hand, I'm going to be pulling my main source of yarn. I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and bring it in to that first stitch. So now I'm just going to continue my chain of 51 stitches. One thing to keep in mind is that your chain should be as long as you need it to be for the person you're making the collar for. If it's for a little child, it's obviously going to be a lot shorter. So just measure around the neck and follow that length for your chain. For me, it's a chain of 51. I just completed my chain of 51. I'm going to now count backwards 2 stitches. I'm counting this one as 1, this one is 2, and there's the third one. I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and go directly in to that third stitch. Pull that main source of yarn through there, and there's my 3 little loops. I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and bring it in through those 3 little loops. Now I'm going to do the same thing basically to every stitch of my chain of 51. So I'm going to continue doing this till I get to the opposite side. I just ended row 1, and here I'm ending with a 1 stitch. What I want to do is add another stitch. So pulling my main source of yarn, I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and bring it in through that 1 stitch, and there I have 2 stitches. Now I'm going to flip my project going in the opposite direction so I can start line 2. Here I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and place it into the stitch left behind by my first row. I'm going to grab that yarn, pull it through. There's my 3 little loops, and basically it's the same thing. Wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and bring it in through the 3 little loops. Again, do the same thing, and I'm going to be doing the same thing to each of the stitches left behind by row number 1. I've just ended line 2. I'm going to begin line 3 the same way I did line 2. So I'm going to finish off with 2 stitches. I'm counting this one as 1, 2, and I'm going to flip my project going the opposite direction again. And from here, I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and go into the stitch. Grab that yarn, pull it through, and basically do the same exact thing I did for line 1 and line 2. Up till now, our collar is going straight. What we want to do now is begin curving the collar. So what we're going to do starting at the end of line 3 is I'm going to go directly into the last stitch. I'm not going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook. I'm going to go directly into that stitch, grab that yarn, pull it through, and bring it directly into the stitch. And now from here, I'm going to flip my project so I can begin crocheting the opposite way. And from here, I'm also not going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook, and I'm just going to go directly into that first stitch, grab that yarn, pull it through that first stitch. There's my 2 little loops. I'm going to be placing this one into that one. To begin line 4, I'm going to basically do the same thing we've been doing for the previous 3 rows. After the first stitch, I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook, bring it in through that stitch, pull it through. There's my 3 loops, wrap the yarn around my crochet hook and bring it in. So I'm going to do this to 3 stitches. This is stitch number 2, stitch number 3. Now for stitch number 4, the only difference is that I'm going to go into this stitch twice. So there's 1 and there's 2. So the following 3, I'll just be going in once, and then the 4th one, I'll be going in twice. So I'm going to continue doing this till I get to the opposite side. I'm finishing my fourth line. What I'm going to do to the last stitch is I'm just going to go directly into that stitch, grab that yarn, pull it through. There's my two little loops. I'm going to place this one into this one, and I'm just going to flip my project so that I can begin crocheting the opposite way for my line number 5. And I'm going to go directly into that first stitch, grab that yarn, pull it through that first stitch, and place this stitch into that stitch. And from here, basically, I'm going to do the same thing I did for the previous row, which is going in once into each of the stitches. The first 3 ones just going in once, and the fourth one I'm going to be going in twice. So there's 1 and there's 2, and the following 3 I'll just go in 1 time. So I'm going to continue this pattern for my line number 5 and my line number 6, and the 6th one will be the final one. I'm ending line 5, and I'm going to do the same exact thing I did for the previous row. I'm going to go directly into the last stitch of row 5, grab that yarn, pull it through, and I'm going to be placing this stitch into that stitch. And again, I'm going to flip my project going the opposite direction so that I can begin line 6. For the first stitch, I'm just going to go directly in there, pull that yarn. There's my 2 little loops. I'm going to place this one into that one to begin the last line, which is line number 6. And from here, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go in 1 time into each of the stitches, wrapping the yarn around my crochet hook, going into the stitch, pulling that yarn through that stitch. There's my 3 little loops. I'm going to wrap the yarn around my crochet hook, bring it in, and I'm going to do the same thing to the following 2. So it's 3 stitches doing the same thing, and the 3rd stitch I'm going to go in twice. So there's 1 and 2, and I'm going to continue doing this till I get all the way to the opposite side. I'm ending my final row, so I'm going to go directly into the last stitch. I'm going to grab that yarn, pull it through, and just bring it all the way out. And then I'm going to be cutting around this area. Now what I'm going to do to these 2 little ends, I'm going to place my hand into the big little loop, get the little tail and pull it through, and just go all the way and cause pressure. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a stitch over the back area, because this is going to be the back of my collar, and then this is going to be the front. And I'm going to grab that yarn and pull it through that back stitch about halfway. And what I'm going to do with these 2 little tails is a knot. Now I'm just going to cut the 2 little tails off. So here's the little tail we began with. So basically finish your project the same way I showed you on the opposite side. Just make sure that you're also finalizing it over the back side of your collar. Here I have the collar finished. As you can see, from one side it's perfectly round from the back side, and then from the front side you have the option to close it off either with a brooch or with a button. For this beige one I chose little pearl buttons. One thing to make sure is that whatever buttons you decide to use, just make sure that they fit easily in the stitch, the size of the stitch. That way you won't have any problems later on when you want to use your little collar. Here I have a black collar. For this one I decided not to sew a button, and all I did is I added a brooch.
Saturday, I watched you fly away across the empty sky. I turned around and waved goodbye, and now it's me alone. It's just an